welcome to the Fresh and Live Mama's Easy Make Kitchen series. Now, I don't advocate playing with your food normally. Look at this, it's so beautiful, and this is my tomato onion bread, and I'm going to show you how to make it. But first of all, let me introduce you to my dehydrator. Now, dehydrator is a very nifty piece of equipment if you want to keep things fresh and live, because what you do is you make your mixture and then you spread it on a sheet, which I'll show you in a moment, and then you just literally leave it for 12 hours, 24 hours until you have something that is very, very delicious. So the texture changes, but there are enzymes in here and nutrients and minerals and vitamins that haven't been killed off by the cooking process, because cooking does kill nutrients. Not all nutrients, but most nutrients. So this dehydrator is something that I use a couple of times a week, and it just enables me to have a lot more variety in my diet. So what I'm going to do first is show you how to make the mixture for tomato and onion bread. First of all, I'm going to pop into the blender 4 tomatoes, just 4 little tomatoes. I don't really need to chop them in half actually. If you've got a high-speed blender, it will whiz those up. Then I'm going to put in 6 sun-dried tomatoes. So these are in oil. You can use the sun-dried tomatoes that are already very dry. Just make sure you soak them before you put them in. So 1, 2, try to spear these with my knife. I love sun-dried tomatoes because they're very salty, but they're naturally salty. They just taste tomatoey but salty as well, so you don't really need to add any salt in things like this. I think that's about 5 or 6 in there. Okay, then I'm going to squeeze the juice of a lime into the blender. And it's so simple. 2 or 3 easy stages to make this tomato onion bread. And yes, you have to wait for it, but you can get on with your day whilst your bread is dehydrating. So there's no fuss, there's no checking, there's no worrying that it's going to get burnt or anything like that. That's why I like to use a dehydrator. As a mother, it's a brilliant time-saving piece of equipment, even though you have to wait for the food. But then if you sort of plan it properly, there's no waiting involved at all. So now I'm going to just cut a couple of slices of red pepper for our bread. I've already washed this, so just chop those up a little bit, pop those in the blender, and then 1 stick of celery. And all of these ingredients will be found on my Little Guru site, littleguru.co.uk, and then you can print out the recipe, pop it on your fridge, and then do this step by step. Okay, so we've got half an onion, and this is also going to go into the blender. Just going to chop this roughly. Ooh, nice. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop in a little bit of apple juice, just a tiny bit of apple juice, just to make it blend nicely. Okay, so this is stage 1. This is all the wet ingredients for the bread, and we're going to then mix it with the dry ingredients. In fact, what I'll do before I do this, just pop in a little bit of oil. This is a fresh one that hasn't been opened yet. Now this is a really good oil to use, a pure natural oil of cold pressed hemp seed, very rich in omega-3, 6 and 9. So put this in your bread and you'll be well away. Okay, so there we go. Then I'm going to put in a teaspoon of raw honey, which I'll just pop in here. There we go. Now I'm just going to whiz this up in the blender, and that will be phase 1 complete of our bread. Okay, so I'm now going to pour these wet ingredients into a nice big bowl. And now it will be time to prepare the dry ingredients. And we've got different seeds and flax seeds and pumpkin seeds. So what I will need to do is I need to wash my blender and dry it. If you've got a Vitamix, I don't know how a Vitamix works, but there might be a better way to do it. If you've got a food processor, you might want to do it in separate stages as well, like I'm doing, and sort of mix it in at the end. I used to try and put everything in my blender and try and blend it all up, and I'd wonder why there'd be steam or smoke coming out of the bottom. It's good to separate the stages. Okay, ready for phase 2 of making our bread. And can you believe we're going to go from this to adding in some dry ingredients to this really lovely bread. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some pumpkin seeds and pine nuts into my blender. I'm just going to whisk these up so that they're almost ground to a fine flour, but not quite. Okay, so here we go. course, if you've got a little one and you're not too keen about them eating nuts and seeds, then just try and grind them to as fine flour as possible. If you don't have a high-speed blender, you can get one of those little coffee mills or coffee mill attachments, and they grind up nuts and seeds, cacao nibs, beans, anything to a fine flour. So get all of that out of there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is grind up the flax seeds. Now these are flax seeds which are just brilliant because they're gelatinous, and what they do is that they soak up any water and it just makes everything a bit more binding, and it's easy to spread as a bread before you put it into the dehydrator. So just 2 tablespoons of flax seeds. Could have put those in with the pumpkin seeds, but I want these really ground up very nicely, so let's do these. Like we're going to take off or something. That's how this bread makes me feel. Literally, it makes me feel brilliant because it's got nothing nasty in it. It's wheat free, it's gluten free, it's dairy free, it's meat free, it's sugar free, and it tastes lush. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm then going to put in a bit of mild chilli powder because I like my bread to have a tiny bit of a kick. It's just a little bit of chilli powder, and then some really nice Italian seasoning. You can choose anything you want to. You could mix it like Indian style crackers or breads, or Italian, Polish, Russian, anything that takes your fancy. You can put in the seasoning that you like the best. So I like quite a lot of Italian seasoning. And then I'm just going to mix this in, and I hope you can see that it's mixing very nicely together. And it's not like kind of bread that you'd make into a dough for this particular recipe, so I'm not going to mould it with my hands. I'm actually going to spread it on to the dehydrator sheet with a spatula. Okay, so mix that in nicely, make sure the flax seeds are distributed evenly, and then they will start to absorb any water in there and bind this bread together. And you only need a couple of tablespoons to have that really good effect. Okay, so now I'm going to get one of my dehydrator trays. I've got a round dehydrator, which I love. It's really good for the kitchen because it saves on space. You can get a really big one, like a big square one. And maybe I will get one of those one day when I've got a huge kitchen, but for now this is perfect for me. Now my eyes are actually beginning to water a bit because of the onions. What I'm going to do is, you can see, just spoon on a couple of spatulafuls of this bread, and then I'm just going to turn it round, making sure there are no gaps. And you can have it as thick as you want or as thin as you want. If you want a nice soft bread, make it, you know, a centimetre thick or maybe more. And if you want it nice and thin and crispy, you can spread it thinner. But this is delicious. I'm crying, it's so tasty. Oh, these onions. The onions are very important in this recipe because it's tomato and onion bread, but also just the flavour you get from those spread onions is delicious. Okay, so now, I've spread that around. As you can see, the flax seeds are holding that together really well. And so then what I do is I pop this onto the dehydrator, literally flick a switch, and 24 hours later you will have your very delicious bread. Now how you cut it up is up to you. You could either just break it off, which I like to do, and have big chunks of it. I could put on here a nice layer of avocado, some fresh tomato, some leaves of some description like spinach or rocket or watercress, and it would be a very delicious sandwich. We can just eat it like this. Oh my life. It's like, it doesn't get any better than this. You've got to make this. I would share it with you, but it's not possible.